Hey everyone, and welcome to our Q&A presented by Just Love. My name is Paula Jane, and I'm talking to Judy Carroll. Judy is an internationally known author and now has 5 books in the Zeta series. Today, she is going to talk about each title and tell us what she believes to be the most profound message. We will then continue to unpack what we've been learning from Al in Judy's recently released book, An Interview with an Alien, Comments by an Undercover ET. Judy, along with Al, the ET featured in the original book, Alien Interview by author Lawrence Spencer, is helping us to unravel the fascinating and confusing crash at Roswell in July of 1947. Judy identifies as a blended soul whose conscious awareness spans 2 planetary connections, Earth-Human and Zeta Grey. This allows her to access the memory of the soul group involved with the Roswell event. So hi Judy.
Hi Paula, hi everyone.
Judy, you now have 5 books in the Zeta series, so what do you feel is the most profound message from each book? Which one would you like to start with first?
Wow, this is a hard question to answer because all the books carry multiple messages. What I'll do is just give a brief description of how they all came about, which will sort of answer the question. The first book was Human by Day, Zeta by Night. I started writing this book sometime after a major encounter experience in 1995, when I was taken back in astral form to a sacred site I'd visited in person a few weeks previously during a trip to the UK. During this encounter, I was laid down in the very centre of the stone circle, and a very long needle with a blue crystal on the end of it was inserted into my brow chakra point. It really hurt, and I was held down by several small greys for the procedure to be done. I woke the next morning with a tiny crescent-shaped red mark on the chakra point. What I eventually came to realise was that they downloaded and opened up more of my ET consciousness. It was basically acupuncture that they'd used on me, and information in the form of energy was stored in the crystal to be transferred into my energy system. The reason was they wanted me to start writing a book explaining ET human contact from their perspective. So much disinformation and misunderstanding has been put out, and so much fear-mongering going on. It was time for the ETs to present their side of the story. Why I wrote it in a fictional format was because back then I was terrified of speaking out openly as an ET living down here as an Earth human, but it's totally based on truth. Presenting it this way was actually good, as I was able to just relax and express ET reality in a more easily understood way for Earth human readers. It also made it more acceptable to a wider readership. People can take it on board at whatever level they feel comfortable with. Probably the main message in it is to explain the parallels between Earth-plane religion and off-planet spirituality. The idea being to bring more oneness into the situation. This is why one of the main characters is a Catholic priest.
Wow, that's quite an introduction to your books, Judy. So how about the second book, The Zeta Message?
Yes, the Zeta Message, or ZM as we fondly call it, is totally non-fiction and quite close to the bone in parts. It tells the story of a local family here that I was introduced to by a mutual friend when they began having very full-on ET contact in their home. My co-author, Helene Kay, is the mother of the family, and much of the book is taken directly from diary notes she kept on an almost nightly basis. The main contact revolved around the 2 children of the family, but Helene's husband got a look at the ET visitor one night in the hallway of their home, and Helene once heard his voice very clearly when she was practicing an aura cleansing technique he taught us earlier in the day. We have this up on our YouTube channel if anyone wants to learn it. The foreword of the book was written by Dr. Janet Colley, PhD, a clinical psychologist based at that time in Washington, D.C., who was an associate of the late and highly respected psychiatrist Dr. John Mack, MD. Dr. Colley was the author of a book entitled Sacred Encounters and had carried out extensive work in the field of ET contact. One of the main messages in the Zeta Message is advice on how to deal with contact in a family where children are involved. At the same time, so much wonderful information was given through Oris, the tall grey teacher who visited the family on a very regular basis.
Yes, I've met Helene on many occasions. Hi, Helene. And she's a very balanced, down-to-earth woman. Both children are now adults with children of their own. It'll be interesting to see if the ET contact passes down to any of them, because it often does run in families. Okay, third book.
Third book. This one is entitled Extraterrestrial Presence on Earth, Lessons in History, and the request for it to be written was made at a meeting up on one of our ships back in November of 2011. This was at a time when the planetary shift was really starting to take off, about a year prior to December 2012. The problem was humanity needed to be woken up and made aware of what's been going on here on Earth for many millennia. The problem began when the planet was hijacked by a group that I call the Repterans. This is an earlier Earth-human culture that was developed down here during the time of the dinosaurs. I call them Repterans, as in the Latin word for Earth, terra, T-E-R-R-A, to differentiate them from the off-planet reptoid humans, who are generally quite benign. The Upstairs family wanted me to write a book explaining about this hijacking and how the Repterans are still controlling and brainwashing humanity in so many different ways. This awakening process is a major and critical part of humanity evolving to the next level of the human ladder, and the only way for Earth humans to take back their empowerment and remain in sync with the planet as she steps up from fourth to fifth world consciousness.
Yes, which is not an easy process, as the control and disempowerment has been going on for so long, and so many people are still unaware of what's really been happening.
Exactly, and a huge amount of this control and disempowerment has been carried out through religion. Religion ideally should be based on love, tolerance and compassion, but it's been responsible for the deaths of so many people on Earth. What people often don't understand is that religion and spirituality are not always the same thing, and this brings us to my fourth book, Cosmic Spirituality, Blending Religion and Science in Oneness from an Off-Planet Perspective. In this book I talk about what the higher evolved ETs believe in the way of God, heaven, afterlife, etc. The main message in this book is that in reality we are eternal, immortal souls who have been chosen to experience 3D reality in physical form. Our physical body is simply a vehicle for the soul, which is the real us. The whole universe is God energy or consciousness, which flows through every one of us and holds us together in oneness. Division is an illusion. The only real difference is the rate of vibrational frequency. Everything is energy. The fifth book, An Interview with an Alien, Comments by an Undercover ET, is a commentary I've written based on author Lawrence Spencer's book Alien Interview, which featured Elle, an ET who was claimed to have been a survivor of the infamous Roswell crash, interviewed by a military nurse by the name of Matilda McElroy. I could feel a level of disinformation and misinformation in the original book when I read it some years ago. I have a soul connection with the Zetas who were involved, so I felt a deep need to clarify the information and provide a more accurate interpretation of Elle's information.
Thanks, Judy. So, from our last couple of podcasts on this book, we're learning from Al that we create our own reality. Does this also apply to her? Does someone like Al create her own reality even though she resides further up on the human ladder?
Yes, definitely. The further up the human ladder we evolve, the more of our potential conscious awareness we're able to tap into. This means that our ability to consciously create our reality becomes stronger. Accessing more of our conscious awareness is what our evolution as a human species is about. We're then able to consciously create in a more positive way.
Mm-hmm. So that being the case, why do you think on this particular occasion near the town of Roswell back in 1947, the ship that Al was in crashed?
The Roswell crash had far deeper connotations behind it than people generally understand. Yes, ET ships can crash because navigating your way through the energy surrounding a planet, and especially a planet that's just gone through a major war, is not easy. The planetary conflict is echoed in the energy surrounding the planet, including the atom bomb that had been exploded, which was still deeply affecting the energy in 1947. So yes, accidents can happen.
Interesting. So, what you're saying is that the Earth's electromagnetic field was in the process of trying to recover from 2 major world wars and the atomic bomb.
Definitely. People generally have no idea of how such things can impact the planet so deeply. We do indeed create our reality through the way we think, and of course people's thought patterns are deeply affected by a war. And on top of that was the effects of the atom bomb, which penetrated far out into space. This was what alerted the ETs into taking action by coming here to investigate.
So, you said the Roswell crash had far deeper connotations behind it than people generally understand. So, what else can you tell us?
Well, firstly, it was a way of letting Earth humans know that they are not alone and the ultimate life form in the universe. Secondly, it was to let them know that others out there are sentient human-type beings, not simply blobs of ectoplasm that science down here would have you believe. And thirdly, it was the least confrontational way to provide technology that could be back-engineered to balance things out down here. In the greater reality, there are no accidents, so on higher levels of their being, the Roswell crew chose to place themselves in a position to enable the crash to happen, knowing that its timing was perfect. They were willing to make that sacrifice because of the dire situation that Earth-plane humanity was and still is in.
Oh, Judy, I'm fascinated by what you say, how in the greater reality there are no accidents and the timing was perfect. So we're talking here about 1947. Are you referring to World War II?
Yes, what people don't generally know is that the Nazis were not defeated in World War II. They simply went underground with advanced technology that had been provided by the Repterans, so they had an unfair advantage. There had been interdimensional interference behind the Nazi regime that needed to be balanced out and neutralised.
So when you say the Nazis were not defeated and they went underground, can you expand a bit on that?
Yes, Paula. Hitler was aided and abetted in his bid to carry out ethnic cleansing and populate the planet with his so-called Aryan ideal by the Inner Earth group operating through the Thule and Vril societies. These, along with a couple of similar groups in Japan, were connected with a Reptarian group based in the so-called Inner Earth, which is really of a different dimensional frequency. Hitler sent troops out to try to find the entrance to this Inner Earth, and it seems he succeeded. There's also a major network of tunnels underground, some of which are also energy portals between dimensions. A friend who lives in Austria has been telling me about a mountain there known as the Untersberg that has many strange stories surrounding it. One of these stories involves somebody experiencing a time warp there and seeing soldiers in Nazi-type uniforms who were still stuck back in the 1940s.
Well, I know, I love those stories. Do you think that military bases are built on portals and ley lines to give authorities easier access to the underground and other dimensions?
This would not surprise me in the least. Many military bases go down many levels, and what goes on down there is kept above top secret.
Yeah. Another question that Al was asked was, have you visited Earth previously, and what can you tell us about her answer here?
Okay, Elle's answer to this question was periodic, repeating observations. In other words, yes, every so often for observation. Matilda, the military nurse, then posed the question, how long have you known about Earth? And Elle's answer was, long before humans. In other words, the Grey Guardians are an extremely ancient culture that's been around for a very long time. They are overseers or guardians to many planets where physical life exists. Some of them had very early physical incarnations on Earth, so these ones look upon Earth with love as their original home planet, long before present-day Earth humans were here. The ETs have visited quite regularly over millennia, and most Indigenous people know and respect them, referring to them as Star Nations, Sky Fathers, Creator Beings, etc.
Yes, and one such drawing is depicted on the cover of your book, Extraterrestrial Presence on Earth Lessons in History.
It sure is. I love that cover the publishers came up with. It also features a couple of artworks by Italian masters dating back to the 15th century, which depict UFOs in the sky above religious scenes.
What amazing proof that the ETs have been around right throughout our history. That's so interesting that the artists back in the 15th century Italy were depicting them. So, everyone, if you would like to read more about all of this, I'd just like to remind you here that Judy's books are available from Amazon, or you can go directly through Judy's website, which is included in the link below. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends and your family and subscribe to this channel. Until next time, sending you all so much love and thank you all so much for listening. Bye for now.